Church. My name is Pastor Scott Himmel, and I'm joined in leading worship today with my colleague, Reverend Dr. Barbara Schwartz. And Deacon Barbara's standing with me because she's had several announcements she's going to lead us through in a minute. Our mission at North Shore UMC is to know God and experience a place of belonging centered on the teachings of Christ. I see I lost my mic. It's these masks, you know, microphones and masks do not go well together.
Or earrings.
Right. Always feel free to connect with us online at our website, northshoreumc.com. There in the middle of the page, you can find all the announcements you'll see in your bulletin. At the bottom of the page, you can sign up for our weekly e-news, and feel free to connect with us via our Facebook page. And Mark's going to start us off with a few comments on our adult forum to follow today's program.
Yes. Today's adult forum is going to continue our exploration of Native America today and what indigenous peoples have given. I'm going to start with a PBS, just a 20-minute clip from an excellent series that I discovered in California PBS. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful exploration of Native American history that I don't think many of us know. So it's a wonderful way to kind of continue our discussion from the sermon.
And excellent. And Harvest of Goodness.
Harvest of Goodness, thank you all. I will be sending everyone's assignments. Some of you already know that you were sold out at the beginning. Others might not know that. So today you'll get your updates, and everyone who purchased will get their updates, and then you guys will be able to have synergy by the end of the week and figure out when you're getting what. So that is going to be a lot of fun, and I think you will enjoy the wonderful offerings that came up. The early birds did catch the worms, so and that is always a thing to think about. If you haven't ordered and you want to talk to me, I'm here, and I will be very happy to process anything anybody forgot. Jesse, be careful with that cheesecake this time. That's all I'm going to say. And oh yes, outreach. The Kids Above All, we had 5, Catherine and Sarah gave us 5 names to respond to. They are all taken. The problem or the challenge of getting everybody on board with that was so simple, I couldn't believe it. So thank you very much. For people that still want to do something, they don't get a particular name, I think the best way to go is a Target gift card, because Targets are accessible to most people in most areas, and people then have the opportunity to get what they need, and that's helpful for the social workers at Kids Above All and various other places that we are working. So it's not only Kids Above All that will get those, but we have other places that are in need of those things. Right now, the next big push will be for food. Yesterday I saw in the news, food banks are in big trouble, and we need to help them as best we can. And so we will be working on that, and outreach will again rise to the fore. Kathy, Family Promise begins next, a week from Sunday, 2 weeks. So that Sunday morning, if people stay after worship and just kind of spruce up the rooms and make it welcoming, that will be really helpful. And then we have the takedown the following week. Okay.
And would you like to say anything about the Interfaith Thanksgiving service?
Oh, sure. I'll say something about that. The Interfaith Thanksgiving service this year is at St. Elizabeth's at 7 o'clock next Sunday. And we have almost every single congregation in Glencoe is being represented. We have a beautiful service planned, and you'll be able to meet the new pastor from St. Paul AME, Catrice. Reverend Catrice will be there, and she'll be giving us a meditation. And we'll hear from one of the cantors at Am Shalom who'll be singing, and Dylan, who's their marvelous organist, pianist, will be playing. And we'll just have a wonderful time, and there'll be some fellowship afterwards. If you're out of town, no worries. St. Elizabeth's will be doing it in real time, and then you'll get a recording. So you can watch the service and be participatory. So it should be a lovely evening. Did I forget anything else, Scott?
No, that's great.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Thank you.
My
This
work
worked
here is
well.
done.
I'd like to extend a special welcome on behalf of our congregation to Lauren Clark, who is joining us today. She is Director of Glencoe Youth Services Special Needs Adults Program, or SNAP, and she will speak later in the service. Let's give her a round of applause. Woo! Are there other announcements people would like to share? Then let us center ourselves with our words of gathering.
Good morning. Teach your children what we have taught our children, that the earth is our mother. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the children of the earth. If people spit upon the ground, they spit upon themselves. This we know. The earth does not belong to humans. Humans belong to the earth. This we know. All things are connected like the blood which unites one family. All things are connected.
I was glad when they said unto me, we will go into the house of the Lord. Please join with me in our call to worship, responding on the boldface from the words of Black Elk. Grandfather, great mysterious one, you have been always, and before you nothing has been.
There is nothing to pray to but you.
The star nations all over the universe are yours.
And yours are the grasses of the earth.
Day in, day out, you are the life of things.
You are older than all need, older than all pain and prayer.
Grandfather, all over the world, the faces of the living ones are alike.
In tenderness they have come up out of the ground.
Look upon your children with children in their arms, that they may face the winds.
And walk the good road to the day of quiet.
Teach me to walk the soft earth, a relative to all that live.
Sweeten my heart and fill me with light.
Give me the strength to understand and the eyes to see.
Help me, for without you I am nothing.
And please stand as you are able and join us in the opening hymn, Let All Things Now Be.
Fashion that made
Today, I bring you the sacred hoop, which is turned into another extension of that. It's called a dream catcher. Now, I don't know how many of you know about dream catchers, but these beautiful circles have like a weaving in the middle that reminds us sort of a spider's web. And the reason that we have these, Native American tradition holds that if you place a dream catcher above a cradle of a child, the bad dreams will be caught in the web and the good dreams will be able to flow through in the open space. And that dream catcher, it's no accident that it's a circle. Circles were sacred hoops or weavings of life. And if you see and you go to a Lakota reservation, you might see these sacred hoops painted and displayed and used in ceremonies. It means that all of the phases of life are in this circle. And they're divided with color and ages. Each age has a different place in the circle, in the wheel of life, meaning that all things are connected. So it's a really powerful example of Native American tradition and theology. Now, do we say all tribal peoples are alike? No, we do not. But what's amazing is there is an underlying theology that guides all of these tribal peoples. And as you'll hear in a little while, you'll find that this just didn't happen for 1,000 years, or 2,000 years, or 5,000 years, or 10,000 years. It happened, now research tells us, possibly 25,000 years. 500 years ago, things changed. But this dream catcher to me is a symbol. It's a symbol of the way people are going to work to recapture who they once were. And the dream catcher, I pray, will be a way that people can hold what is good and true, and that the web works to keep out what is not.
Oh.
born on a reservation. And I was so happy to have this given to me, assigned to me to read. God bless you all.
Our Hebrew Testament reading comes from the book of Job, chapter 38, verses 1 through 15. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind. Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up your loins like a man. I will question you, and you shall declare to me. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me, if you have understanding, who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone when the morning stars sang together and all the heavenly beings shouted for joy? Or who shut in the sea with doors when it burst out from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band, and prescribed bounds for it, and set bars and doors, and said, thus far shall you come, and no farther, and here shall your proud ways be stopped. Have you commanded the morning since your days began, and caused the dawn to know its place, so that it might take hold of the skirts of the earth, and the wicked be shaken out of it? It is changed like clay under the seal, and it is dyed like a garment. Light is withheld from the wicked, and their uplifted arm is broken. This is the word of God for us, the people of God. Thanks be to God. Amen.
Good morning, and thank you, Racial Justice Committee, for serving as liturgists today. We start with Job. Job, the poor put upon man, who's kind of a victim between Satan and God. He's the guy who they're betting on. What's going to happen to him? Will he stay faithful? Or will he reject God and all that God has offered when everything is taken away? Job is hoping to hear from someone other than his well-meaning friends who don't make things better. They constantly tell him, well, here's where you went wrong. No, I think this was it. You must have done something stupid. Otherwise, why would you be in this mess? And Job is going, well, God, where are you? And suddenly you heard Pastor Scott read what God says to Job. God says, look, were you there when I gave orders to the morning or shown dawn its place? In other words, you're messing with things you have no idea about. The power of the universe is mine, and you are mine too. And eventually the story has a happy ending. But God's power is demonstrated here as a force we don't get. We might think we do, but we don't. We have, the more scientific knowledge that we gain, the more questions we have. It is the way of things. But I think, when I think of Job, and this wonderful creation hymn that God sings right back, I think about where it fits into our thoughts about the First Nation peoples who were here, what they thought. They never saw nature as something to be subdued. They knew its power all too well. Those words of Chief Seattle strongly resonate in my ears this morning. You must teach your children that the ground beneath their feet is the ashes of their grandfather, so that they will respect the Lord. Tell your children that the earth is rich with the lives of our kin. Teach your children what we have taught our children. The earth is our mother. Chief Seattle was one of the First Nation people, just one of many, who tried to bridge the cultural gap with the settlers that entered into a land that had been lived in and shared for at least 12,000 and possibly many, many more years. As people migrated over the land bridge that once connected Asia and North America, they spread all over the continental United States and continued down through Central America and South America. It was so interesting to me when I spent some time in Bolivia with indigenous people and saw so many similarities to the people that I recognize as Navajo or Hopi. How did that happen? And how did it happen that some of the things that I saw in Bolivia were directly related to the people I'd like to study in Tibet? It's interesting that we now have some genetic evidence to tell us that indigenous people all came from the same genetic code. So more research is forthcoming, but it's kind of a fascinating thing. There were a remarkable variety of cultures, languages, and customs that abounded. The small number is 150 tribes, but probably more like 500. And so it went. And living on this continent was a groups of people, large groups of people, millions of people, millions of people who lived together and tried to make it work. Didn't mean it always did. As one indigenous person was speaking that I was listening to a lecture, she said, don't think we were all perfect, that this was the land of Eden, and don't think it was a land of savage people unable to think. Neither of those are correct. We were people trying to make the most of where we lived and who we were, trying to make sense out of life, just like everybody else. But native cultures in this country were trampled by migrating Europeans who would bring new nations into being. We look at that 500 years ago and we say, oh my gosh, how could they do that? But we don't always understand that there were mindsets. When the Spanish came to the shores of California, the mindset was the Inquisition. So there was a thought, a desperate thought about conversion, and it became ugly. We have this manifest destiny in our minds. Why? Because people were leaving repressive cultures in Europe. So things happened. Not always good. It came at a cost. And a cost we're just beginning to acknowledge fully. As First Nation people were forced west, they were pushed to enculturate, to give up what had once been their way of life from time out of mind. It's interesting, when you're with the indigenous people in Bolivia, they'll take you to their hills, and you'll see these stripes. They said, you know, what is that? Well, that's where the farming took place. When? Oh, about 10,000 years ago. But they talk to you as if those folks are just around the corner. There's this sense of deep connection, and you can see how it governs the lives of these folks today, much like you. The story sometimes turns grim. It doesn't take much to figure that out. Sometimes it's difficult to relate. Christianity was part of this tragic story and often used as a civilizing tool with the intention of pushing First Nation people into submission. But it was more complicated than that. Oftentimes, the people who were doing this felt that this was the only way they could save the lives of Native peoples. Not always, but sometimes. Christian boarding schools were integral to the process. When I was in Canada for a Religious Education Association meeting, the First Nation peoples were being honored at this meeting in Toronto. And they share a similar history, Canadians and people in the United States, of how now to look at Native peoples and what to do. In those boarding schools, children were removed from their families and forced to abandon their culture, and they were punished. If they spoke in their native language, they were punished. If they acted in a way that reminded them of their families, they were punished. It was thought that obliterating all that they had known would help them enculturate and save them. Suzanne Crowe, a very powerful woman who represents and leads the United Methodist Board of Church and Society, brilliant mind. She's engaged the study of what these marks have left, these school marks have left. And she has issued an apology on behalf of the United Methodists, acknowledging we cannot change the past. Many of us had no hand in it. But, she said, we will address trauma and hopefully bring about healing. Native Hope is an organization that works to heal, stressing that telling stories of Native struggle and Native strength is a powerful catalyst for unity, generational healing, and personal growth. Dr. Maria Yellow Horse Braveheart works to bring about restoring people to wholeness, stating that, first, you must confront the historical trauma. Second, you must understand it. Third, you must release its pain. And fourth, you must transcend it. This is the work of a group that is spreading out into Native peoples throughout the country, and it's impressive. The trauma is real and has taken an enormous toll on our indigenous populations. But there's much that extends beyond the trauma. For too long, we have ignored the wisdom that indigenous people have to share. My family always thought I was somewhat of an odd child for so many reasons. But one of them was, what is a Polish Catholic little girl so fascinated by Native Americans? What is driving that engine? My poor father would be dispatched to the library for me, and whenever I was sick, he'd have to come home with more and more books, and finally the librarian said, she's read all the ones we've got, move her up, she's a good reader. It was that kind of a fascination with the culture. I don't know why, but I found that the lessons I learned meant something to me, and they profoundly affected my life, even my illness. We are finally fully beginning to understand and recognize the remarkable impact of the collective wisdom of First Nation people. I did not know this, but I recently found our very democracy was predicated on Thomas Jefferson's and Benjamin Franklin's fascination with and deep knowledge of the model of governance of the Iroquois Confederation of Tribes. They were so impressed with how they brought peace to 5 really disparate groups that they thought it would be a good thing to incorporate those lessons in our Constitution. The First Nation people's regard for the environment and sustainability is now providing a depth of awareness about how to respect the earth. If you've been following the Glasgow Summit and seeing what has been going on over there, I think about the lessons we might pick up. John Muir, the famous environmentalist and naturalist, once said, Indians walk softly and hurt the landscape hardly more than birds and squirrels. Instead of grasping resources, wasting with thoughtless regard of the impact of that it is inflicted with, Using nature as a disposable commodity, Native people have maintained a reverence for the interconnectedness of life. That circle. Native people saw nature as a precious gift that demanded respect, care, and reverence. The Lakota Sioux called this the sacred hoop. Native Hope explains the circle or medicine wheel is viewed as the foundation for every component of human and animal life. The earth, the sky, the universe. It instructs us about the seasons, life, animals, and the earth's compass. Each direction of north, south, east, west, there are 6 by the way, up and down, encompasses the teaching of life for each individual and their place in society. The center represents the earth and sky. It is this deep recognition that all living things relate to one another. The incredible knowledge of plants for healing is being recognized and used by our pharmacists now, and they are learning more and more. When native healers gathered medicinal plants, they would only pick the 3rd plant in a row or grouping. Why? They wanted the plants to live and regenerate. A prayer of thanks was offered when a hunter went out to kill a deer. The spirit of the animal was thanked for offering it food for sustenance. Buffalo were cared for and respected, and every part of the animal was used, nothing wasted. If you have ever seen the pictures of what happened with the slaughter of buffalo just because they could, the piles and piles and piles of carcasses, and the indigenous people's tears. Native tribes did not think of religion as a distinct element, something you do on Sundays, but rather it was incorporated and integrated into their larger life as culture and community. That is not to say that they looked at the world with only a magical eye. They were scientists too. They could understand and work with plants. That's how you got corn from a weed. That is how you have constellations that measure time. Every task, every ceremony, every community gathering, every relationship with humans and non-human things were part of a larger sacred story. Community property was basically what the Christians hoped for in the book of Acts. That's how they lived. It was very difficult for them to think of dividing and parceling out land. They just couldn't see that. It wasn't part of who they were. The spiritual and physical are not separate, but interwoven and constantly interacting with each other. As Christians, we can learn from the tolerance and acceptance, not acquiescence, but acceptance, by Chief Seattle and the visionary Black Elk. These men converted to Christianity. They were followers of what was called the Jesus way. They blended it with their ancient religion. This is kind of remarkable given the track record. But they knew and could see there was something sacred there, no matter how it was taught. It was that deep understanding of relationality that allowed Chief Seattle and Black Elk to see what Christianity had to offer. It was a careful negotiation. There's a wonderful story I found in the Jesuit Review of Black Elk's granddaughter. She remembers a particular incident. I was at my grandfather's house and he was sitting down, getting his pipe ready early in the morning. And here was Father Siam knocking on the door. He came in and he saw my grandfather with the pipe. Now remember, just a word of thought here, Black Elk is up for canonization as a saint in the Catholic Church at the moment. So it's kind of astounding. And this kind of back and forth about ancient tradition of pipe and the Christian belief were always negotiated. Well, my Father Siam grabbed the pipe and said, "This is the work of the devil." And he took it and he threw it out the door on the ground. My grandfather got up, tossed the priest's prayer book, and threw it out on the ground. They both looked at each other and nobody said one word for a very long time. And then they both went out, and I saw Father Siamu pick up his prayer book, and Grandfather picked up his pipe. Then they turned around, and they just smiled at each other and shook hands. The smoking of the sacred pipe was revered sacramental ritual with indigenous peoples. You will see it most strongly in the Plains tribal peoples, the Northeast tribal peoples, and now in the desert Southwest. They believed the act of smoking was a prayer because the smoke went up into the heavens. Black Elk was a holy man and a healer. He started receiving visions at the age of 5. When he was 9, he suffered a severe illness, and the vision he received would be a guiding force throughout his life. He was given guidance by the 6 directions: north, south, east, west, above, and below. And he was given the gift of a sacred pipe. His gifts as a healer were revered by his people. He said, "The first peace, which is the most important, is that which comes within the souls of people when they realize their relationship, their oneness with the universe and all its powers, and when they realize that at the center of the universe dwells the Great Spirit, and that this center is really everywhere. It is within each of us." There is a journey ahead of us that will allow us to discover the rich traditions of the indigenous peoples. At Thanksgiving, we always do that. We think about that wonderful meal shared together. And we often get our facts a little bit scrambled because time out of mind, fable sometimes becomes history. But what is interesting is that those Puritans hadn't a clue. They were city people who end up on the shores of an unforgiving land at the wrong time. They got here too late, it was too cold. And who would come? And they learned. They lived together. This vast array of collective wisdom offers us a way to live more fully. Understanding of community in a different way. Understanding culture and the beauties of it. There's so many amazing things to learn. For 500 years, Native peoples have faced trauma and loss and injustice. Reservations were not the prime territories. They were the places no one else wanted. Trauma leaves scars that are deep and difficult to heal. But organizations like Native Hope face the future with possibilities. They believe that getting people who come to them for help to share their stories will heal them. Where they came from will be explored, and where they hope to be will be encouraged. This is a daunting challenge now, for these folks are mostly time out of mind. But the poverty rate of First Nation people is the highest of every minority group, 26%. It's coupled with substance abuse, lack of work, poor housing, poor health care, and being forgotten or marginalized. Most people don't really realize that there's a tremendous scandal going on of the loss and disappearance of Indigenous women and children. Who's looking? The journey ahead is a joint relationship. And I believe as United Methodists, we are called to do this. To travel just a bit in someone else's, as you would hear the old expression, walking in someone else's moccasins for just a bit. And just opening our eyes a little and thinking about it. These folks have their own way of going forward through this trauma. They will do it. But if we care a little bit, understand a little bit, show support a little bit, perhaps things can change. A recognition of what was lost will give our nation a better understanding of what can be gained. We'll be the great recipients, because we will be the recipients of the font of knowledge and wisdom, culture and beauty. But we have to remember that we also are here, as choir so beautifully sang, to be the touching place of Jesus. So when people need that extra, I care about you, we can be there to do that. And now Pastor Scott, instead of, he's very kindly queued this up for me, instead of singing a hymn of response, I thought maybe we'll have Carlos Nakai give us a response this morning.
One moment. We turn now to our prayers of the people. There we go. I'll begin by sharing with you all a prayer concern for us to lift up to God together, and then I'll turn first to your concerns and then your joys. Let us continue to hold in prayer the dear friends of Marge Piscini. Their names are Paul and Linda. Paul has suffered from Parkinson's disease for the past 20 years. About a little over a week ago, he fell down the basement stairs at their home and was hospitalized with multiple fractures. Paul's condition, thankfully, is continuing to improve, but prayers are still needed for a long road of recovery ahead. I'd like to turn to your concerns. Please call out my name and share as you are so inclined. Yes, Kathy.
A friend of ours and my father friend Brian. I couldn't get this house. Because you know what hospice is? Cancer of the spine. So please pray for Dan and his family.
We will be holding Dan and his family in our prayers as Dan has been transitioned to hospice care. Thank you, Kathy. Others? Concerns or joys? Yes, Paul.
I want to thank everybody who's been so welcoming to me on my first day back in several weeks and months. And I have really missed the spiritual center the church has given me every Sunday. But I'm especially pleased that I came back on today when we have Lauren Clark from the special needs program at GYS, because I am so proud of her humility and her dedication to helping those who have such a difficult time helping themselves. And I was telling Laura I have some great plans for her, primarily to try to open up my donor list and my friends to all of SNAP's needs so that she can continue to learn how to ask and realize she's not doing it for herself, but for the people that she's asking for. And I think that makes it so much easier to ask when you have that attitude. And I'm so happy to hear her today and see what she has to say to our wonderful church, who I hope will be a supporter of SNAP forever.
Walter, we are so glad that you're feeling better and back with us following the injury to your leg and back. We've been holding you in prayer. Thank you for your remarks regarding Lauren and the SNAP program and your commitment to fundraising. Others? Yes.
Yesterday, those of us that came to the retreat that was offered by you and Barb and Somerville, it was really a beautiful experience, and we hope that we can do more in the future. I think we all enjoyed it. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you for your word of grace, Mary. It was a joy for Barb and I both to collaborate on planning yesterday's fall spiritual retreat focused on the prayer practice called Loving Kindness Meditation. And we had visited at the end of the retreat that we might next year incorporate that into a Sunday worship service so more people can be exposed to it, and other prayer practices and spiritual disciplines as well. So more to come. Thank you to everyone who could join us yesterday. Others? Let us pray together. Loving and most gracious God, we come before you this day giving thanks, Lord, for all faith traditions. In particular, Lord, the people of the First Nations, the people we call Indigenous Americans, and their rich spirituality that has so many lessons to offer us. We give thanks for Deacon Barber's rich sermon that has helped us to appreciate and understand Indigenous Americans' cultures and spirituality more fully. Help us, God, that through that understanding to appreciate God, all that we have to learn from them and how that may help each of our groups to grow and develop and be more tightly bound together. God, we come before you this day and lift up to you our concerns. We pray for those who are grieving the passing of loved ones. Be with them during this time of grief. Give to them your comfort and peace. Be, God, with those who have been transitioned to hospice care. God, be with their family and give to them the support needed in this time to be your love and grace to them. God, we lift up to you as well all of those who are ill and suffering and pray that your healing touch rest upon them, especially those with long roads of recovery ahead. God, we place before you as well our joys. We give thanks for yesterday's spiritual fall retreat and how it has helped us to understand more fully what it means, God, to live into your love and to practice your love within our day-to-day experience. And God, we give thanks for the members of our racial justice team who created the original vision for this service today. Thank you, God, for the work of grace that you are doing through that body of people. And God, how they are helping all of us to grow in our understanding of racial justice and our appreciation of all peoples. These prayers we place before you and say together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. We turn to our reflection on generosity. I would like to invite forward Lauren Clark, Director of Glencoe Youth Services Special Needs Adults Program, also known as SNAP.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, everybody, for, first of all, just for having me here today. I'm so grateful for the invitation and to be able to talk about the SNAP program a little bit with you all. My name is Lauren Clark. I am the Program Director of SNAP, which is a program within Glencoe Youth Services here in Glencoe. Each Tuesday evening, we meet at the Glencoe Youth Services Center, and it is a program designed for adults with disabilities to have a sense of community and be able to engage in recreational and social activities each week. And one of the biggest aspects of this program is really giving these individuals a place where they can enjoy friendship and really have a safe sense of community with one another. And each week, we have different sponsors who host dinners, so they provide a dinner for all of the members each week. And so that is one way to help support this program is by offering to host or sponsor a dinner in 2022. Each week we have a different sponsor, and the members are endlessly gracious for those meals, and it really allows us to have a sense of community and be able to, you know, just enjoy conversation and time with one another. In the future, if you ever would like to stop by, we'd love to have you by on a Tuesday evening at the Glencoe Youth Services Center. Feel free to stop in and see what we're all about. Thank you.
We give Lauren a round of applause. Thank you. Lauren may have some other materials that she'll be sharing with us, and we'll distribute those electronically regarding SNAP and other ways that you may participate, but a great option regarding the dinners. Thank you for offering that to us and for your presence. We turn now to our offering. There are two ways to give at northshoreumc.com/give and the offering plate at the back. Let us practice the virtue of generosity together. And now our offertory music.
belong to the earth. This we know. All that has been created and given to us is a gift from God. Let us give thanks and let us offer this gift back to God in service to God's people. We ask this in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ. That's right. We have a final hymn here. Please join us in singing In Unity We Lift Our Song. And it's, if you don't have that, you should. It's right on the back page.
The benediction. May the sun bring you new energy by day. May the moon softly restore you by night. May the rain wash away your worries. May the breeze blow new strength into your being. May you walk gently through the world and know its beauty all the days of your life.
Please be seated.